Today, I got somebody really special for y'all. We're talking about FBI to corporate, Mr. Rob Sayegh.
Let me tell y'all out there a little story, man, and it goes a little something like this.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls and children of all ages, it is yours truly once again, the corporate security translator and the author of So You Want to Get Into Corporate Security, coming out June 30th. Today, I got somebody really special for y'all. We're talking about FBI to corporate, Mr. Rob Sayegh. We got a lot of great stuff. Now he's like with the FIS Global E-commerce kind of company, man. I'm really excited. It's gonna be a heck of a time, Mr. Big Time Rob. How are you, sir? How's your day going?
Going well, Carlos. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here today.
Well, listen, I mean, you're one of the coolest guys, man, that I know. It was great. We had a great opportunity to meet through this little company that I work for today, Facebook, and through some of the folks there, big time Adam Korn, that was just in the podcast, and it's a outstanding coworker, buddy of mine, a colleague, as they say, for the intelligent folks out there. And but yeah, man, I'm really excited to have you. So thank you so much for taking the time and giving back to the folks, man.
Of course. I've just gone through this. I'm sure I'll continue to go through this and kind of pay it forward. Many people were so helpful to me. I'm more than honored to talk about my experiences.
And that's the beauty of it. Thank you for giving back to the folks. You literally just went through this process of transitioning out of the FBI into kind of like the corporate world. So you are going to be key, my friend. All listeners out there, get your pencils, pens, your writing utensils or computers or however people are writing these days. Get ready to get some notes. I think this is going to be really, really awesome. So, hey, Rob, I could break down everything about you, but why don't you share with the folks a little bit about yourself, and let's get this party going.
Sure. Well, again, thank you, Carlos. Very excited to talk with you today. So I'm a just retired this past Friday, in fact, 24 years with the FBI. Thank you. It's for those of you who have retired, there's a kind of a not real feeling to it yet. But 24 years with the FBI, I served in 3 different offices in my career, in New Jersey, in New Mexico, and now here in Richmond, Virginia. Have worked almost exclusively criminal, white collar fraud, violent crimes, crimes against children, public corruption, security fraud.
Wow.
And so I've really had a nice a breadth of violations that I've worked.
Man, that is huge.
Yeah, no, I've been very fortunate. As law enforcement, I think, generates some of the finest people in the world, and I've been fortunate to work with some of the great ones. And if I have had a terrific FBI career, and couldn't be more proud of it and more thankful for it.
That's awesome, man. And I mean, as obviously your illustrious career, you look through it and you go, okay, there's going to be a time where I gotta transition out of this thing. It's gonna come to an end. It has to come to an end, sometime or other. When did that come to be for you? When did you say, man, I better start paying attention to this thing because it's going to end soon. This ride's going to end.
It's funny, maybe 2 years ago. So like everybody in law enforcement, you see the guys who have the 5-year countdown calendars up, and that's frustrating to me as an agent, because it's like, well, just do your job right now, right? I mean, instead of just wishing this away. But I guess when I became eligible to retire, which was 2 years ago, I started to think to myself, all right, you're still young in your 50s. Where are you going with this? You still love this, but the Bureau's not going to let you stay forever. So, I knew nothing. I was completely in the FBI law enforcement bubble, had no contacts other than FBI retired guys, and didn't know really where to start on this. And quite frankly, Carlos, when you're doing it every day, you just don't even know what you don't know. Right? I didn't know the different sectors. I didn't know, my skill set, was it portable to these different sectors?
Right.
What was expected in the private sector? So what I did was, not knowing anybody other than a bunch of retired FBI agents, I got onto LinkedIn, I have no shares of stock into LinkedIn, so I'm not here to shamelessly plug them. But I got into LinkedIn and I got into Indeed. LinkedIn was more helpful for me because it added, context and personalities and individuals. Indeed's more narrow, obviously, for positions, right? I got into LinkedIn and I started to reach out based on initially, different FBI agents, but then I expanded it to companies, roles, positions. And then I started talking to people, introducing myself. And I found myself really forcing myself to maintain activity, whether I was reaching out to somebody on LinkedIn or having conversations with guys like you or Adam or people in other industries, and learning about what they do, how they went about it, taking notes. And quickly, I think, well, maybe not even quickly, but eventually you learn probably more what you don't want to do than what you do want to do, right? And that's helpful, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
A good example for me is I certainly worked in the money laundering world as a white collar agent for years, but I didn't know if I wanted to do that as in my post bureau career.
Right.
So that was something I was like, I'm not going to rule it out.
Would that have been to like the banking industry?
Correct. The suspicious activity reports, and what have you. So I didn't rule it out, but I was now curious into other things, and then I started to learn about the tech industry, and things you hear about, but I started to really kind of peel the onion on these things. The cultures started to become important to me, right? Is the remote opportunities, right? Obviously the pandemic has accelerated that for a lot of industries. But do I want to work remote? I mean, I'm used to being the guy at the water cooler talking about the football game the next day, right? These were all things that you've got to start kind of budgeting into your thought process. And then you got to think about, I had to think about, really reflect on, what are my strengths, right? Am I a people person? And do I want to be a supervisor again? Or am I an interviewer? Am I a cyber guy? Right. And then you've got to think to yourself, and this is really important. I mean, obviously the secondary income that you're going to get off your pension is very important, but you can't be miserable, right? You've had these great law enforcement careers. You want to enjoy what you're doing. So I really wanted to think about what's going to make me happy. The culture, the job title, the flexibility. Do I want to travel now that my kids are not playing high school sports anymore? So a lot of things change for you in the 50s, and you've just got to determine what is important to you. But I think the best way to kind of ascertain that is talking and talking and talking to people. And I would say this too, talk to some retired law enforcement for sure. But you also want to talk to people that never were in law enforcement, because they're going to have a different perspective on it as well. So I think just getting information, talking, and then reflecting on it for yourself.
I'm going to clap on that one. We're clapping on that one. That was a good one. And I'll tell you, as you were saying, I really get, man, I get some great ideas. Know thyself. So when we're growing up and we're going to college 2021, we think we know what we want to do. And sometimes we land into a gig like the FBI, right? You land into a gig, and then through time, you learn who you are, what you want to be, what you like, what you don't like. So here is a second opportunity. Now you know thyself. You've been in the workforce for a very long period of time. And like yourself, now I know who I am. What is it that I really want to do in the future? And it seems like you kind of went through that process. And the second piece of that is that you took the time to really get to know people in different industries and stuff like, which is key, because culture is everything. If you're, and I always said, if you're just a rigid human being and you need a mission and you need I must have strict policies and procedures in which I operate in. A lot of times there's a lot of tech companies where I work, it doesn't work out. It seems like you went through that process, and that's wonderful.
Yeah, I did. And it was really important because I said it a little bit earlier, you just, at least for me, and I think this is true for most agents that I've worked with, we just don't know what we don't know, right? And The other problem I think is, and I want to get into culture a little bit about where you're getting to. The other thing I think is it's so important to activity is sometimes, especially in the FBI, but I think in law enforcement in general, we think the phone's going to ring and somebody's going to offer us a job.
Oh, it's the FBI, of course.
It doesn't matter FBI or not. My phone never rang.
Right.
And you've got to be your biggest advocate out there. You may get lucky and somebody, but the odds are that if you're not hustling, and on your off time, reaching out, making connections, learning about companies, and thinking about this stuff, it's just not going to happen for you. I don't mean to suggest that it's grim, but there's just got to be some effort placed.
Well, yeah,
without a doubt. And then as far as you kind of talked about knowing yourself, we're in the luxury of not only knowing ourselves, but we have jobs right now, which is a huge leverage, right? So we don't have to leave for anything that we don't want to.
Right.
That is what's so important about this. So, if you know what you're good at, right? If you really like the cyber world, if you really like the money laundering world, if you prefer doing interviews and more investigations, if you enjoy doing the employee investigations, right? A perfect example, Carlos, before I started this, I never even heard the term employee relations before. Didn't even know what it was, right? And I spoke to a person who said, hey, have you thought about employee relations? And I was like, I gotta be honest, I don't know what that is. The more I learned about it, the more I thought, wow, my skill set really is transferable to that. And did not even know it existed.
Right.
So I think that's important. Then you talked about culture. I obviously knew what Facebook and the tech industries were, but I didn't really dig in a way as a potential employee would. So, right, you hit the nail on the head. There's going to be a different culture and attitude at a banking industry versus, say, Facebook or Google or any of the
absolutely.
Right. And I'm not saying one is better than the other, just different.
Yep.
And if you're not nimble, if one is going, if you only know yourself, and if you're thinking to yourself, you know what, I've been in the FBI for so long, or law enforcement, and I just can't see myself wearing Crocs to work every day, right? Then don't go that route, right? Right. You don't have to. So I thought that was very important, and learning, and there's all these different sectors out there, right? Carlos is in the tech industry. There's the banking. There's I think like hospitality. There's consulting. There's transportation. All these. We're
a biopharmaceutical, right?
The farm has
the sports entertainment,
right? And I think for the most part, and I'm not trying to say that these industries are all unique, for sure, but for what we offer as prior or former law enforcement, in a way it's widgets, right? Because we're bringing, whether it's at Facebook or whether it's at Bank of America, what we're bringing to the table as former law enforcement is pretty much the same. Now, the cultures may be different, but what those companies expect from us may be pretty much the same, which is terrific for us, because if you're okay with the different cultures, you're eligible probably for all these different industries. Now it's just up to what you would like.
Yeah, it's absolutely. And I think if there is a group of folks that can easily meld into a culture, if they had to, a lot of times are law enforcement folks, because you're out on the streets, you're dealing with a lot of different people, a lot of different folks. You're trying to talk to them, get information a lot of times from them. You're doing a lot of investigations, which can be your kind of front end, your first level criminal all the way to the big timer. And sometimes you kind of have to mold yourself into that to fit in. And if somebody can do it, it's definitely the law enforcement folks.
I couldn't agree more. Obviously, I think one of the biggest things we offer to the private sector, and I've seen it even, you don't even have to look that far, as dads or as moms, when we are interacting, as, say, coaches for our kids, there's different personalities out there. And I think I've seen myself and I've seen other law enforcement people who are easy are very easy to, the hyper, sports parents or the low key sports parents. We really kind of know how to deal with different personalities, and it's a skill set because you're dealing with you're in an echo chamber and seeing nothing but other law enforcement all the time. You don't realize you have, but when you start to contrast yourself to other people in other industries, it really is something we develop of dealing with various personalities of all sorts.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And you had, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm just saying we do it so adroitly that we don't even realize that we're doing it until we are with people that aren't in our industry, with law enforcement.
Well, yeah. I mean, I do it all the time with my wife's friends. I fake it till I make, no, I'm kidding. Wifey, love you. Love all your friends, dude. They're all great. Yeah. Anyways, hey, but I remember you and I were talking about something one time, and I remember you were trying to reach out. I think primarily it was to nothing but like FBI folks. And then you realize the sexiness of it to another FBI person. It's like, hey, dude, I know you. But there's this thing that you were trying to get into, and I loved it. I love what you were saying. Can you kind of break that down for folks?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. I had a note on that one. So kind of a couple thoughts on that. One, don't make the mistake of getting on LinkedIn and only reaching out to former FBI or former law enforcement, state police. It's great. It's nice, but they're probably not hiring. Now, they may have some insight for you, and that's terrific. But don't just limit yourself to them, right? And then so that poses the thought that if there is somebody who's in law enforcement versus somebody who's not in law enforcement, right? And I'm not saying it's a binary decision that you have to pick one or the other, right? But just know what you're getting into with both. So when you call somebody in law enforcement, right? The great part about it is there's an instant kind of brotherhood. They understand you guys both served, and they want to help. But what you're going to lose with that, and it's fine, is any of the mystique and aura. They're going to be like, "Hey, I did the job. I'm not impressed. I know. I get it. You can't kind of fake me out on this, right?
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not trying to say you're trying to fake them out, but the serving 24 years, me telling a retired FBI agent that that I've served 24 years and this is what I did, he's gonna be like, well, I did the same thing. Great. Whereas if you're going to somebody in the private sector, and again, we're not faking anybody out, but somebody in the private sector may have never met a FBI agent before,
right.
Secret Service agent before, right? So there's like, wow, this person has a whole lot of background that I'm not familiar with, and they've seen the movies, and there may be some advantage that you get with that. Now, what you lose with somebody from the private sector is you don't have that bond.
Right.
So it goes both ways. I obviously being transparent and honest with both, and just trying to put your best foot forward is the answer. But what my point is on when we had that exchange is, don't expect that the person who is in law enforcement to instantly want to hire you or help you, because they may say, I know what you did, and those skill sets don't really transfer to this job. Right. Even though I want to help you, you just don't have the skill set where I need something more narrow sort of skill set. Where somebody in the private sector, they may not really know what our skill sets are. They may be a little romanticized,
right,
and they may be a little more impressed. They also may, now look, that cuts both ways. The person in the private sector may be like, you know what, I don't want to bring any law enforcement into our culture. It's not what I'm comfortable with. So I think the answer to this is, again, being honest, transparent, and not taking anything personal. You and I talked about that too, Carlos. Yep. You're going to send out gobs of resumes. You're going to talk to a lot of people, and you're going to get many, many rejections. It's not a personal indictment on you. Don't get discouraged. Don't say, hey, it's not going to ever happen. When you send your resumes in, and I think it's true at most major companies, it's, I think, an algorithm or a 22-year-old kid screening your resume.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I've seen it all the time. They just graduated with like an HR degree or something at 22, 23. That's their first entry level as a recruiter.
They're doing their best. And, maybe your resume is written in a way that it sounds great to another law enforcement person.
Right.
But a 22-year-old kid may be like, I don't know how this is portable to what we do here. So
Jargons, acronyms, you got to get rid of
jargon is
that.
everything, right? So, cheat. And when I mean cheat, go look at other people's resumes who and say, okay, they described this action here. I really do the same thing, but I worded it poorly. Right. So start wording it differently. Certain things no one's going to care about, right? I made an arrest, no one cares. It's just, it's great. We care in law enforcement. But the private sector is going to be like, that's just not.
We don't do that. We don't
do that here, right?
We don't make it.
So as you said, Carlos, not only know thyself, know thy audience.
Oh yeah.
Right. So default to the person reading this has never had any experience in law enforcement.
Right.
Right now, if you're the hiring manager is a retired state trooper, if the hiring manager is a retired FBI agent, they'll get it. But why take the chance? Write it in a palatable way that a 22-year-old or an algorithm is not going to be a gatekeeper for you.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Scott Vetter and I, he writes books for the military on how to kind of do the whole transition thing, but his focus is on interviews and resumes, and he really breaks down jargons, acronyms, and it could be used for law enforcement too, but he does a real good job. So Scott Vetter, if y'all want to watch the podcast, you could jump onto that one right now, and he'll be able to tell you more. Nancy Stone is another podcast that I did, and she was a coroner for the LA County. And now she's a corporate investigator. So she was able to kind of transition. She was able to look at the job description and translate her resume to kind of fit what you're saying, right? Look at the job description and see if you can kind of do that thing back and forth. But I got a kind of like a personal question for you. We're going to get a little bit deeper on it. But were you scared? You got 22 years in, and you're like, okay, I got 2 years. I got to find something. What am I going to do afterwards? Am I going to do something? Were you ever worried that you weren't going to be able to do this? And maybe when you got your first rejection or something like that, I mean, if you got any, but what kind of kept you going? What was your focus on there?
Yeah, well, first off, I got gobs of rejection. Yeah, there is, because it's funny in the sense of we get into these jobs in law enforcement, and they're jobs, of course, but it takes over, right? It becomes a lifestyle. It becomes how we see the world. We can't turn it on and off, right? This is not a transactional job that we've had for 20 plus years, right? It becomes part of your DNA. So you think to yourself, I'm in a squad area with like-minded people. We trust each other. I'm very comfortable. I know how to deal with the prosecutors. I have all the vacation time in the world, right? I get to work out.
Yep.
Right. It becomes, I don't want to say easy, but comfortable. Right. So you're like, wow, you start thinking to yourself, wow, am I going to leave this where I don't have the safety net anymore? If the economy drops, I can lose this job. Right. I may not, I'm going to have to, be the new guy again. I have a status here in my job. People come to me for help. Everything that you've built up for, and here you are, experienced. Your supervisor leaves you alone. You come and go as you please, and you know your job. You've got some cachet, respect, and then you're like, well, you know what? I've got all this here. I've worked my entire career for this position, and why don't I give it up? Right? That's what you're basically saying. Yeah. For financial uncertainty potentially, and I've got to start over as a new guy, and I have no vacation time anymore. Right. Right. There's no doubt. These are thoughts that should go through every thoughtful person's head when making this jump, right? Because you've got to weigh this in and budget are giving this up worth the next step. Yeah. So for me personally, this is an individual thing. For me personally, my youngest is graduating high school in June. She's going off to college in August. Congrats, Dad. Congrats. Thank you. Thank you. So I'm single, I'm an empty nester. And I just thought, and obviously I had started before this, but the timing of it worked, and I kind of anticipated this happening over the next couple of years. For me, it was okay. I can move, I can work remotely, I can travel all I want. I felt the opportunity that I'm taking with FIS Global. The people there were just very inviting, and it sounded like an exciting position.
Awesome.
So all these different elements kind of, made it seem like a very good decision for me. Now, with that said, Carlos, the day I dropped my papers,
right,
it took me about a week to feel comfortable with it.
Oh man, I can imagine.
It was unsettling. It was a couple sleepless nights.
Yeah.
It was calling up retired FBI agents that I trusted and worked with and said, did you go through this range of emotions? And they all did. And they all said it will pass. And they all said, you'll be thankful.
There is life after the FBI, from what I heard.
There is. So, and I'm very fortunate, it's like to equate it to the Winnie the Pooh quote, right? I hope I know somebody that I love so much that when they leave, I can miss them. Right. Yep. I'm Winnie the Pooh in the sense of, I'm very lucky that I had a job that I would miss. Right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. That I feel, I go talk about Winnie the Pooh. I mean, I worked for the Disney company for almost 21 years. So, and that's basically kind of where you're at now. It's being one, I'm sure you're extremely thankful for 22 years. So, after I did my 21 years with Disney, I remember that week after when I walked away, when I said, I'm doing well here. Why the hell am I walking away?
Yeah.
But it's, the people, you start thinking about the people that you worked with and how amazing that was. You think about all the different experiences and the cool stories that you can tell. And you're like, did I really do the right thing? And then, you start thinking about all the folks that, may reach out to you and call you every once in a while and say, hey man, we miss you out here. And then and vice versa, you contact them. Hey, how's it going out there, man? I miss it too. So I can remember those emotions, man. But at the same time, man, I'm sitting over here really excited for you because I did that 6-7 years ago. So I'm 6-7 years into my very, very long career with the Walt Disney Company. And man, it's nothing but amazing stuff. So I'm pumped for you. It's going to be amazing, man.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm very excited. It's for me, again, everybody's got different metrics they use. For me, going somewhere, I had to feel comfortable with the people, right?
Yeah.
I have worked with extraordinary, honorable people for 24 years. And I just can't, the people matter to me. And I felt very comfortable that I was going with very good and ethical and hardworking and like-minded people. So that mattered to me.
Yeah.
But, look, at some point, the FBI wasn't going to let me stay forever. I wasn't going to be able to be a 75-year-old FBI agent. They're going to kick me out the door at some point. So
right.
I went on my terms and I'm proud. I feel like I sprinted to the finish line and now excited for a new chapter.
There you go. A lot of clapping for you, man. Outstanding work. So we got about a minute and a half or so. And thank you, man. Thank you for kind of sitting through us with this. And it's just awesome stuff. But leave the folks with something, man. Leave the folks that are right now transitioning. They're thinking about transition from the military, law enforcement, emergency services, and federal careers. Leave them with something.
Yeah, I would leave you with the activity. And I can't stress that enough because the activity, it's a broad term. But in essence, you've got to make this happen for yourself. I joke, and Carlos and I joke that the phone doesn't ring, but it doesn't. So you've got to go out there. You've got to present your case. There's a way to present yourself without being arrogant. Obviously, there's a fine line on that, and everybody gets it, right? I mean, so when you start being an advocate for yourself, no one, thinks that you're taking unnecessary bows. So get past that, but reach out, get on LinkedIn. And I found this too, Carlos. We didn't talk about this. I would, message people on LinkedIn all the time. It was fairly standard, what I would say. I thought it was not that, too invasive, just seeking help. A lot of times people didn't get back to me, But I have to tell you, there's so many decent people out there that want to help you. And it's a numbers game. So if you're going to send out 100 different messages to people, and you get back 30, 40, that's 30, 40 people to ask and get information, or maybe they'll look at your resumes. People are very generous with their time. Use it. And learn, find out the industries, and then in your own head, see if could I do this job? Could I work there? Is that a culture's right for me? Is it too, my kids aren't done with school. I can't move. So that job's out, but I like this industry. Start really playing things in your head. And then thinking, do a list. What am I really good at? What would I love to do? And see if you can take that and see if it's portable to another career.
Yeah, that is awesome. Hey, that's good feedback. And I'm going to throw in 2 quick ones in there. Be humble as you go through this approach. I've had some bounce with some federal folks that were just not humble whatsoever.
Yes.
So be humble, be kind. There's a lot of great folks that want to help you. And now Rob too, by the way. Rob now is gonna be here to help you too.
Happy to.
Rob? See, there you go.
And I say that from my heart. And to echo what you just said, there's never a bad time to be nice and be helpful, right?
There you
never.
go, man. There you go. Hey, awesome conversation, awesome chat. We're coming up here at the end of time. But I just want to thank Rob once again for coming out, everybody. This has been great.
Pleasure.
We cover so many things. Look, you don't know what you don't know. Get on LinkedIn. Reach out to folks that you were not comfortable reaching out to before. Just don't stick with the folks that because it might not get you anywhere. You don't get the gig. It's not personal. We talked about that. I added rejection is progression. Rob, what do you think about that? Rejection is progression.
It absolutely is. And then when you do get the position that you want, you'll know that you've done as much as you can, right? If you have the job, listen, we all want that first job where you first ask, but there is something to it when you've earned it and you've gone through this process.
I love it, man. This is great. Hey, everybody, this has been awesome. Great 30 minutes from yours truly, the corporate security translator and the author of So You Want to Get Into Corporate Security, out in stores June 30th. We're going to end it here. Rob Sayegh, thank you for your time, my friend. Absolutely. Everybody out there, we'll see you next time. Take care and good night.
Thank you,
see ya.
fellas.
You got it.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.